Thanks, Adam. Hi, everyone. Appreciate you coming down for this session. And for one thing, it actually shows how committed you are to getting success out of Event Sustainability Live and Event Tech Live. So this is quite a long workshop. By long, I mean 2.5 hours. So we'll try and make it as interactive as possible. And we do have it's a lunchtime slot, so I hope your stomach isn't full and you fall asleep during the session, but we'll try our best to make it interactive and interesting for you. The ETLE TO Masterclass, we're actually holding this in conjunction with Adam, and it came about, the TO Masterclass came about during the pandemic, because we've been in business for the past 16 years, and one of the things that's really a bugbear of mine is that in the UK there is no formal education about how to succeed at trade shows. We've had a look at all of the university courses out there, and we have event management degrees, but none of them actually have a module which actually explains how do you actually get a return on investment, return on objectives, and return on experience from trade show exhibitions. So we set out to actually look at what can we actually do to help exhibitors generate more business from exhibitions and improve their ROI. And the word performance came up, and as you will know, a lot of really high quality teams, sports teams, high functioning corporate teams, they have a strategy in place. And going back the 16 years to working with exhibitors worldwide, I thought, what is it that we've actually learned over the past few years working with our clients, and what do the most high performing exhibitors do that the non-performing exhibitors don't do. So the word TEO came about, so trade show engagement optimization, and it's a play on SEO. Everyone here in the room should be familiar with SEO, yeah? Brilliant. So trade show engagement takes 5 pillars, and what we do is we lay the foundations to help you succeed at any given trade show, whether it's Event Tech Live or any other shows that you actually attend. Who am I? I'm the founder and managing director of Expo Stars Interactive. We started 16 years ago, and it was actually as a result of actually going to an exhibition in Chicago. It was a related event actually called AdTech Live, and it was at Navy Pier. Almost 16 years to the day, I think it was at the end of July 29, when I actually went there as an exhibitor. And we made all the classic mistakes. My managing director booked at the very last minute, 2 weeks to go. We got there. We took one of these pop-ups all the way from Gatwick to Chicago, and I was the unfortunate person that had to carry it all. We got there, and we found out our position was actually at the back of the booth, at the back of the hall. And guess what? We actually had no traffic passing by. So what did we have to do? So we had to go around and network with people and bring people in. But as a result of that, and as a result of actually walking about, what transpired was that I saw that 80% of the exhibitors were being passive. What do I mean by being passive? Just having the booth and just standing there like this and just waiting for people to come. Or even worse, they actually had the mobile phone and were working away or on the laptop. So there was no proactive engagement going on whatsoever. And these companies had spent tens of thousands of pounds actually going to Chicago and being present to actually exhibit, to find new clients, and to raise their brand awareness and everything else. But they were doing anything but. And then on the back of that, we had 4 or 5 exhibitors that were absolutely smashing it out of the park as far as engagement of attendees was concerned. They had a very clear journey. They had a clear plan to say hello to people, a clear plan to educate them, and to collect the right data and to actually set up the follow-up process. So I thought, why is 80% of exhibitors, okay, not being proactive? And it all turned out to be they weren't actually aware or they weren't taught how to actually exhibit. It was just something that their company did, or it's just an idea that they were actually sold that they could actually go to this exhibition and get more clients, but they didn't know how to actually do it. So we started up Expo Stars Interactive, and the idea initially was to provide high-level professionals who could actually help exhibitors to engage and qualify the sales leads and get more business. So we built up a network of 2,500 professional freelancers who could actually help exhibitors to engage and say hello to the attendees, qualify them, and then feed them to the sales teams or the booth teams to do the demonstration. So I started the business out of my bedroom as a one-man band, and then now gradually we've grown to a massive network around the globe, and we've worked with the likes of all the major pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, Novartis, Bayer, to name but a few. We've worked with all the automotive brands like BMW. So having this passion for delivering results at exhibitions, it's been quite a journey for me as an entrepreneur, and now what I want to do is actually help educate the exhibitors out there on how to do it better, and just have an ecosystem where they can take the strategy as well as the staffing and really, boost or transform their exhibitions from just having an ordinary show to having an extraordinary show. So that's my journey. On top of that, I've been in sales for about 30 years, having sold everything from timeshare to cable TV to online advertising. I'm also a business mentor. When I started my journey as an entrepreneur, I actually had very little help. And a few years ago, I became a business mentor for the Business Growth Hub in Manchester, supporting startups or companies, SMEs, who wanted to get to the next level of their growth. And one of the things that we're proud about at Expo Stars, apart from the pandemic year of 2020, every year we've had an average growth of about 20%. It's not fantastic, but steady enough to actually keep growing. And that's sometimes what business is about. Okay, we can't all be the Stephen Bartletts of this world, where we can actually have overnight success and make millions and millions. But sometimes you just have to be slow and steady and believe in what you're doing, and that growth will actually come. So, and now what I do is I go around the world and I work with organizers, exhibit builders, and exhibitors to actually help them improve their performance. So that's me. The agenda, obviously we're running a bit behind schedule, so we're going to look at 5 areas: business growth strategy and the attendee journey. That'll be the first part. Then we'll move on to staffing, KPI metrics, and follow-up. It is interactive. I will be giving you some exercises to do as a team on the table, and then at the end we'll have some Q&As. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you all to stand up, please. Get you all warmed up, moving about. Right, Adam was telling me that it's now been 10 years of EventTech Live. All those people who've been with EventTech Live and exhibited, show your hands. Okay, you can now sit down. Anyone who's been exhibiting with EventTech Live for 5 years or more? No? Yeah, all right, you already sat down, Matt? Okay. Yeah, Stacey. Yeah. And any newbies? Who's exhibiting for the first time? Yourself. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so you may take a seat. I just wanted to get an idea of who the experienced exhibitors are and who the novices are. So that's great that we have a really good mix. Moving on. So what I want you to get out of this course is, number one, we want you to be able to clarify and align your exhibition objectives with your business growth strategy. This is failure point 1 of exhibitors who don't achieve the results, okay? Because their exhibiting strategy is not aligned with their business growth plans. Number 2, we want you to create an engaging attendee journey to improve your quality of sales leads and the brand experience. Again, a big mistake is a lot of exhibitors where they fail is they fail to really create an engaging journey or prospective customer journey by really understanding all of the steps that are actually required to succeed, to take that customer from being just an attendee at an event all the way to getting them to sign on the dotted line and do that deal with you. So we will be talking a lot of about that in depth. And we want to be able to help you select, upskill and motivate the right booth staff to actually help you succeed. Exhibiting is all about people buying from people, so we'll be having an in-depth look at how you can actually select the right people and train them, motivate them to help you succeed. Number 4, we want you to get visibility of your key metrics, okay? What are the key things, what are the key numbers that you need to know to help you realize whether you've succeeded or failed at the exhibition. And then lastly, we want to help you bridge the gap between saying goodbye on the booth to the first step in the follow-up process. Again, a massive mistake that exhibitors make is that they take the business card or they'll scan the badge and then they'll leave it to chance to actually follow up. And we want to get away from that. We want to help you bridge that gap between saying goodbye on the booth and then setting up the next step in the conversation. So this is what we find. I'm sure Matt's seen plenty of these around all of the exhibitions that he's been to. So when we see this kind of behavior, the question I always ask is, why bother? Okay. As I said at the beginning, we've got people there, very busy on their mobile phones. We've got, I think this was at a tech show actually. It's like, come and talk to a human, but the human is actually talking to the tech. And then at the NRA show, I think the National Rifle Association in the US, we've got 2 gentlemen there having the time of their lives, having a great takeaway lunch, and one of them even has his jacket hung on the trigger of an AK-47. So, and then obviously, last not but least, we have someone who's using this booth space to have a really good sleep and catch up from the jet lag that she has. All right, so these are all common behaviors that we get, and no doubt, Adam, you've seen this kind of behavior over the years, in the 10 years of event tech life. Brilliant. So essentially what we want to do is we want to help you get from that picture over there where you've got staff, not really motivated, just on their devices, waiting around, waiting for things to happen, and we want you to get to this kind of booth where it's a hive of activity, presentations, demonstrations, people talking to people, a really good buzz on the trade show floor. So this is our mission, always to help our exhibitors to actually achieve that. And once we do that, I think magic does really start to happen. So what is a successful TO strategy? First thing, as I mentioned, is the business growth, aligning your business growth strategy with your exhibitions and your sales and marketing as well. Number 2, we're looking at the attendee journey. Okay, that's before, during, and after. And then also a subset of on the booth itself, okay, because there'll be different elements of that journey on the booth too. So you need to look at, what happens, what can you actually do before the event, obviously the journey during the event, and also the journey after the event. So you need to dissect that into 3 different sections. Then we've got your booth staffing. This is again a very critical part of your success. Number 4 is your KPI measurement, knowing your numbers, and lastly your follow-up process. Now, have a look at this, and nowhere will you actually see the booth. Okay. And this is, again, a common mistake that a lot of exhibitors make, is that when they start to exhibit, the first thing that they start with is planning the booth. Okay, and that really is not really a good starting point at all. What you need to have is the foundations of actually having a clear strategy, and we'll go through each one of these elements and link them together so that you have a clear plan of action. So let's move on quickly to the business growth strategy. And the biggest question I ask to all of my clients when we start to work with them is, why are you exhibiting? Right? What are the common answers that I get? Because we've always done this show. And if we don't go, what will actually happen? Another common thing is, we were sold the space. We got a really good deal from the exhibition organizer at the last minute, and we thought it would be a really good idea. Do any of you fall into that trap? No?
I'll hold my hand up and say I have.
Right, okay. In the past, what happened?
Complete waste of space and money.
Right, okay. And what led you to go to that? What was the key deciding factor for you to exhibit there?
Blind hope.
Blind hope. Okay.
Nobody else is going to say it, so I may as well.
Right, okay, okay. Thank you for your honesty. That's really great. So what I want you to do, as part of your tables, okay, I'd like you to do a small exercise, and I want you to look at, outside of collecting business cards and scanning badges, what other objectives could you actually have for actually exhibiting? What could you achieve at Event Tech Live and Event Sustainability Live as a result of actually exhibiting there? So all in all, I think there are about 13 core objectives as a business that you could actually achieve. But what we need to do is think about 5 or 6 core ones for your business, and then look at 3 that are an absolute must for your business for exhibiting at Event Tech Live. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to have a discussion as a team, okay, and just talk about what kind of things and what kind of reasons you have for actually exhibiting, not only at Event Tech Live, but also other exhibitions as well. So I'll leave you to it. Right, how are we doing? All right, let's wrap it up. Excellent. So this table is really still working on it, so they must have lots and lots of interesting ideas. Right. What I like to do is go table by table and just come across any great ideas as to really good reasons as to why to exhibit. So if you could like to share 2 or 3 nuggets from this table, please.
No particular order, get inquiries for what you're selling.
Yeah.
Test the market, see if there's
Okay.
what you're selling is actually valuable, and build a network.
Sorry, what was the last one?
Build a network.
Build a network. Excellent. Build a network of suppliers, customers, just a general industry network, yeah? Yeah, fantastic. That table, Matt and the team?
We had a few. Centralized, that's one of Matt's ones, but centralized place for meeting lots of clients
Okay.
together saves you a lot of time and money and effort.
Mainly existing clients, but often rather than new.
Meet existing clients, yeah?
So we had my previous guys, we did all the tech for the show, so it's a great opportunity to showcase everything
Right.
we do
Yeah.
to prospects, which you could never do in a meeting room. And maybe
That was showcase, in case you didn't hear, yeah?
brand presence, I think was the third one, wasn't it? Just being there, people know you exist.
Presence. Excellent. All right. And yourself?
Generating marketing qualified leads, number 1.
Okay.
To existing customers.
Sorry, what was that?
Existing customers.
Yeah, existing customers. Anything else?
Your product launch.
Product launches, yeah. All right. And this table?
So we obviously focused on why exhibiting as opposed to why attending. So
Right, okay.
External stuff, we did
Yeah.
go into that, but obviously leads and awareness. Awareness, I guess, to Matt's point, short term and then further long term.
Yeah.
Brand exposure, networking, partnerships, also seeing what our competition is doing, as well as meeting existing clients.
Right. Fantastic. So you've got quite a few there. And lastly?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. For us, obviously, as a publication, would be increased readership, to meet and network with current clients, meet potential new clients, brand awareness, to be seen amongst our competitors, and to be up to date with the now and partnerships. So.
Right. Okay. So you've got all the main ones there, which is great. There are many, many things that you could actually do. And one of the things that a lot of people don't really think about is listening. Okay, because we're so intent, because we have committed a booth. We want to showcase our products and services, like you've all said. But one of the best things about exhibitions is listening, okay, to your target audience as to what's actually going on in their heads and in their lives, in their business lives, and so on. So it's really, when you think about listening, it means obviously really creating an emphasis on talking to, whether it's customers, whether it's prospects, really giving them an opportunity to let them have a say and actually listening to what's going on in their world. So if you have a listening theme, what it does, it opens up a whole raft of opportunities for you without the pressure of having a sales target. So let's see how you can do that. So how does exhibiting align with your strategy? So everyone has a business plan, I assume, here. Okay, do you all have a business growth plan? Okay, do you know what your targets are for next year that you want to achieve as a business? Yes? No? Okay. So trade shows are a vital part of that strategy, because if you have a business growth plan and you need to increase your business by 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever your goal is, And trade shows is one mechanism that will actually help you get there. Okay, so but how do we actually include it in that business growth plan? And again, this is a common mistake that exhibitors make, because very often the commitment to trade shows is completely in silo with their sales and marketing strategy as well. So we've come across businesses where the sales and the marketing don't even have any knowledge of what the event marketing team is actually doing and why they're actually exhibiting. We had one client that I was actually working with, and the sales team did not know what the marketing team was doing, and they were just told to actually turn up at the trade show and just man the booth, but they actually had no clear strategy. So if you have a look at your business growth strategy and then say, like, what are trade shows going to give us in terms of the long term, whether it's next year or the year after or the year after that, what you need to do is, again, plan that in and say, right, next year our business growth plan is to grow by 50%. To grow by 50%, we need X amount of clients, we need X amount of brand awareness, and how do we actually use trade shows to do that, okay? Because if you do 2 or 3 industry trade shows and you've got the whole industry in the same hall, as Matt said earlier, it's a great opportunity for you to generate those leads, increase your brand awareness, and really tick 3 of the 4 boxes, from your sales and marketing strategy simply in one go, okay? And that's how powerful trade shows are. The next step is selecting the right shows. Hopefully you've all done your homework, and Adam has actually provided you with all of the statistics as to why you should exhibit at Event Tech Live. And again, as you said earlier, you actually exhibited at a show and you just hoped that it would be the right show for you. But how do you actually find out whether it's the right show or not? Okay, so and these are things that you should be asking the exhibition organizer. Number 1 is, how many of your target audience is actually going to attend the show? All right, you can ask by job title, you can ask by industry, you can ask by buying, decision making, whether they're buyers or qualified buyers. You can ask the demographics, you can ask by geographic location as to where people are coming from. So all of this information you need to hand before you actually make that choice to exhibit there or not. And the best thing to do is to, if you are considering a brand new show, is to go and visit it first without actually committing to exhibit first time, because that will actually give you an idea as to what is going on around the show, what kind of people you can go to the networking. And I know it's not what Adam wants to hear, but sometimes having that first-hand experience of visiting the show and actually speaking to the exhibitors and asking them how they're doing, okay? How long have they actually exhibited at the show? What has been their experience? And this will actually give you a lot of clues. So going back 16 years, as I mentioned earlier, my managing director, when he actually picked up the show, when he actually chose to exhibit at AdTech, it was just a choice that he's started the company, he needs new customers. He got a phone call at the same time from AdTech. It seemed a good idea, but 2 weeks ago he got a good offer. I think the space was only $1,000. We got there, but we didn't get anything out of it, so we lost 2 weeks worth of work. We lost obviously the hotel costs, the flight costs, and obviously our time. Okay, so having a really bad show, exhibiting at the wrong show, can have devastating effects for a business, because it is the most expensive marketing medium that there actually is out there. So you need to make sure that that $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 that you actually spend out of your marketing budget, it is for the right show, and that you actually have got the right target audience at the event. What are your top 3 objectives for exhibiting? Now, we've discovered before that there could potentially be anything up to 12 or 13 different objectives, but as a business, you only need to focus on 3. If you try to do too much, you're going to be all over the place. But if you pick 3 core objectives that you want to focus on as a team, then it's a lot easier to actually achieve. Right? So the top 3 for many of our clients that we work with, number 1 is obviously raise brand awareness of their company. Number 2 is to generate qualified sales leads, focusing on the quality and not the quantity, which is quite important. And then lastly is to listen to their customer base, okay, in terms of what's actually going on. So market research and actually understand what's going on around the industry so that they can actually hone their products and services accordingly. And a lot of customers are there just to obviously meet their existing clients, but also do brand measurement, okay? We've done a lot of work with clients who just want to understand what the audience or the marketplace actually thinks of them. So we've just been carrying out surveys just to measure the brand impact of those companies. Right, there's always a constant battle between sales, marketing, and event management, okay? And sometimes as a business, everyone likes to chip in. Who's had this experience where sales and marketing operations and the executive team all want to have a say in the exhibiting strategy? Anyone? Yeah. It's a hard battle, isn't it? So a question I have for you, everyone. Is a trade show a marketing or a sales exercise? Marketing or sales?
It's not binary.
Sorry?
It's not binary like that, surely.
It's more marketing than sales.
Okay.
If where you're leading to is should you have your prime salespeople on the stand, then the answer is no.
Right, okay. This table?
It's all the same. Both.
Same?
It's both.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay. That table there?
I think it depends on the nature of the show you participate in, the way the show is designed. Some shows are more for doing sales, and there are some shows that are more for doing marketing.
Yeah, that's fair. They're all different, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. On this table, what do you believe? Sales or marketing exercise?
I think maybe it depends on your goals.
Right.
I would say both.
Right, okay. Depends on the goals. On this table?
We think both too.
Both?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the question is then, if it's both, who should be the department that leads the trade show strategy?
The marketing manager is responsible for, in our case, part of the marketing manager's budget,
Yeah,
but it's collective responsibility in terms of the setup, agreeing the budget, agreeing where it's assigned, who's allocated to it, which salespeople are going to lead on the initiatives pre-event. Always, logistics always a part of those conversations as well, making sure
Right.
we get there, but it falls part of the marketing budget.
yeah.
It's a shared responsibility.
Okay, all right, that's absolutely fine. So the answer is whoever actually holds the budget, like you say, okay, as a team, you need to decide on one department that is actually going to lead from the front, okay? What you can't afford to have is multiple stakeholders all wanting their say and all wanting to chip in. And that makes a massive impact as well, because if you have 4 or 5 different stakeholders and they're all changing their mind at the last minute, okay, I get a lot of RFPs coming in, and the month leading up to the show, we've had 6 or 7 different changes to the strategy or the requirements, and that's because everyone wants to have a say, okay? And there's a constant change of mind as well. So it's better just to have one department that actually is held accountable and leads the responsibility for the planning and execution of that trade show. Matt?
So how do you challenge management that say your department is coming armed with stats on history and future and everything else, and this is the plan, this is what you're going to do?
Yeah.
But management come in and say, yeah, we should just do this.
Right.
How do you challenge that?
That's a very good question. I think what you have to do is engage them in the conversation from the outset, okay, and just say, when I've actually worked with clients, what I've done is actually got everyone around the table and actually got their two pennies at the very beginning. When we do an exhibitor workshop, what we do is we insist that all of the stakeholders actually come to the workshop, otherwise it's pointless. And it's actually getting in, making the management actually understand what the consequences are of changing that strategy midway through. Because if they realize that it's going to cost money, okay, then they will obviously change their mind. And the best way to talk to the management team is at the bottom line, okay, is going to make an impact on, number one, the cost, and number two, also the output as well, all right? So it's definitely have that initial buy-in at the very beginning and actually have a team meeting with sales, operations, marketing, and the event management team, and get everybody to actually chip in and say, right, what does your department actually want to get out of this exhibition, okay, and actually have it listed down, and so that you don't get anyone throughout the process just chipping in and breaking that plan, down the line. So clear accountability of a department is very, very important. Everyone clear as to why a business growth strategy should be aligned with your exhibiting plan? Yeah, excellent. Let's move on to your attendee journey. This is the most important element there is. First question is, who is your target audience? Do you know who you actually want to engage with, rather than turning up blind? So let me just give you the scenario. Put yourself in the shoes of an attendee at a trade show, all right? So I went to a show yesterday. It was the specialty foods one at Kensington Olympia. So I came down on the train. I reached there about 1 o'clock. So on the way down, I was on my emails, doing my day-to-day stuff. I got to the event and did the registration, walked in, and I stood there. And what did I see? About 200 exhibition stands. And the first thing I thought about, right, where do I actually start? What do I actually do? Who do I actually go and engage? So my normal plan is to walk around once or twice, get a feeling of who's doing what, and then pick out subconsciously what stands I'm going to actually visit. But think about your target audience. When they actually enter the hall, what are they actually going through, okay? So, and the clear answer is, it's a sense of overwhelm, okay? You've all been exhibition visitors, I assume, okay? Not exhibitors, but attendees, okay? What is the first thing that you feel when you actually walk in? Overwhelmed, yeah? Anything else? Confused, yeah. Dazzled by if you go to technology or gaming shows like I have in the past with all the video lights and everything going on. So emotionally, okay, it's as an attendee, it's a challenging concept to actually walk into an exhibition hall and just face, an overwhelming sense of sensations. Okay, you've got lights going on, so it's kind of a sensory overload, if you like. I think that was the word I was looking for. So it's really a question of then understanding as an exhibitor, what do you need to do to grab their attention, okay? Because you've got another 200 or so exhibitors all wanting that same piece of action, that same piece of attention from those attendees. So you've got to do something different. You've got to, the attendees are actually in a state of trance, if you like, okay? They've got in their head, okay, they've still got their workload at the top of the mind when they come from the office, okay? They're wondering if John closed a deal or not, or whether, the cancellation has been dealt with or something like that. So all these business pressures are still actually in their head, and then you've got all that sensory overload when they walk in. So as an exhibitor, what you need to think about is, how do we actually stop them and engage them enough so that they actually snap out of their trance, okay? Because you've got to do that because that's what they are. They're walking around like a zombie, and you've just got to break them to grab their attention. So this is the thing that you need to do. So where does this journey start? Okay, it starts before the show. Okay, if you know who your ideal target audience, do your research, reach out to them, and give them some 2 or 3 positive reasons as to why they should come to the show and actually meet you. Okay, it could be a product launch, it could be you're doing a seminar on a business challenge that they actually have. So whatever those reasons are, you need to communicate that on your social media, do a personal invite, or pick up the phone and say, we're coming to London, we're exhibiting, we're showcasing X, Y, and Z, please come down and meet us. All right? And make it worth their while. So, and how do you do that? Is by actually understanding what are their pain points and aspirations. Everything that we buy or purchase is based on our pain points and aspirations. Okay? So some people in the event technology world, if you think of all the IT managers out there, what are their day-to-day challenges? Or if you've got event managers, what are their challenges with event technology? Okay, is it ease of registration? Is it getting access to the data? In a live environment, okay? So whatever it is, okay, you need to really think deeply about what it is that you're going to talk about that actually relates to that pain point or aspiration, because this is where the match actually happens, and this is why you actually break them out of the trance, because if they've got a problem and they see something on your booth that is actually going to solve that problem, then that will actually make them stop. Okay, nothing else. It's not going to be, the size of your booth. It's not going to be the size of your AV screens. It's not going to be it might be the coffee machine. You never know. But what it will be is what they can actually get out of actually talking to you, and whether it relates to a business challenge that they have or something that they actually want to improve back at work. So why should they visit your booth? So just alluded to some of the answers there. How will you engage them in conversation? What does that conversation actually look like? And there are very 3 clear stages when you have that conversation on the booth. The first one is arousing their curiosity in terms of wanting to make them stop, okay? So arousing curiosity, it means things like having a busy booth. If people see a very busy booth, lots of people actually being present, they will naturally be drawn to see actually what's going on there. So if you have a hive of activity on your booth, then that will actually draw people. If your booth is closed, for example, I'm going to share a case study where we actually closed the booth and it was privilege access only. Okay, and people got curious as to why it was actually closed, and they wanted to really get in and actually see what was actually going on inside. It could be people walking about with a unique giveaway that actually draws their attention. And you've heard people asking, oh, where did you get that? I want one of those. Okay? So, and it could be as simple as a coffee. Okay? A coffee machine, people queue up, they need some caffeine, and they're actually drawn to it. So that is one of the easiest ways to grab the attention. So, but you need to know how will you actually engage them in conversation. Will you actually say hello? And that most important part at the beginning is the saying hello. How do you actually say it? Yesterday at the event, I walked up to, I think it was about 3 booths. I walked up, I had a question about the product, but guess what? The representatives on the booth were busy on the mobile phone, and I was actually stood there for 2.5 minutes. And I timed it before he looked up from his mobile and actually walked towards me. So if you're making people wait like that and you don't show them importance, then it's going to have an impact on your bottom line results. So there should be only two things that your people on the booth should be doing. One is talking to people, and number two, getting ready to talk to people. How do you get ready to talk to people? So by actually looking lively, by having an open body posture, by locking eye contact with people coming towards the booth and actually drawing them in. And the best thing is you smile. Okay? So smile, eye contact, and guess what? People actually will come towards you. And you can simply say, hi, what brings you to the show? Have a list of questions. So number one, that break the ice with them and build rapport. And number two, that actually qualify them. So you need to know whether they're a qualified prospect for you to actually talk to, or they're just a time waster. I remember at EventTech Live, you've got a limited amount of time, okay? So I think the show floor is open 7 hours a day. So that's 7 hours plus your lunch, so you're talking about 6 hours to have as many conversations as possible. And what you want to do is not be having 30 minutes of conversations with someone who's not really going to buy from you in the long term. So that initial stage of saying hello is the most critical bit, because this will actually determine the value of that lead. Okay, so, and I'm going to share something really counterintuitive with you, and that is for the first 3 or 4 minutes not to talk about yourself. Right? It's very hard to actually think about that, because you've spent 30 or 40,000 pounds on an exhibition stand being present, and you've got, you know, great marketing collateral, and you've got a great layout, but then I ask you not to talk about yourself. That's quite difficult, isn't it? So I think as exhibitors, we're attuned to thinking that the exhibit is all about us and we've got to talk, talk, talk. How many times have you been to an exhibit stand and said, oh, so tell me what it is that you do that you do at this company, or what does your company do? And then you get a 15 to 20 minute sales pitch, and then guess what happens? The prospect, I simply just walk away and say, thank you very much, but it's not something I'm actually interested in. Okay? So you've just wasted 15 minutes of your valuable time on the exhibition stand just talking to someone who has no interest in your product. And this is like that in the retail environment as well. And a lot of people also say, you know, they walk up to the prospects and say, how can I help you? And you know that you're going to be sold to. So what do? You back off and you say, no, I'm only just looking. All right? So what you need to do is create an environment, an open environment, where people are made feel welcome. You break the ice with them, and you talk about who they are, what brought them to the event, okay, break some ice, find some common ground that you have with them, and then you start talking about the business, okay, and then their aspirations and their goals and, you know, what they're seeing in the industry. But if you don't have that personal connection with them on a one-to-one basis, okay, then the chances of you actually selling to them later down the line are going to be reduced. So this is why it's important that you actually have a really clear process of that initial engagement with them. Do you all get me? Yes? Does that all make sense? What do you want them to think, feel, and do at the booth? So you've said hello, all right? The next step that you need to take care of is how you're going to educate them. Okay, what is it on your booth that it is that you're going to show them, all right? So obviously it could be a product demonstration. It could be a presentation that you do about how they can overcome or achieve their goals. So there needs to be an introduction. So you have one person who does the hello, and maybe what you can do then is hand over to a presentation team. The education part is very, very important. 79% of attendees go to exhibitions because they want to be educated on what is going on. they're not going to an exhibition to actually purposely buy something, okay? They want to be educated on what is going on in the industry and how they can actually resolve their problems. So if you don't have that educational process and you just have a sales process where you're just pitching, then chances 79% of the time that you're going to miss the mark, okay? But if you lead with education, it gets people interested, okay? And it makes you look like the expert in the marketplace as well. So I really think about that. It's in terms of, you know, do I want them to feel informed? Do I want them to do I want them to feel good? Okay. Do I want them to feel energized after having visited the stand? So what are the emotions that you want your attendees to actually really feel as a result of coming to your booth? And what, not only the first impression, but what is the last impression that you want them to actually walk away with? All right? So let's talk about the customer journey for a bit. So we've talked about saying hello. We've talked about the educational process. I'm going to quickly talk about the presentations, the length of the presentations. A lot of companies, a lot of exhibitors have 30, 40-minute presentations. Ideally, your optimum time for a presentation is 6 minutes, okay, to get your message across. Why? Because people are in a rush, okay? They've got lots and lots of other things to do. Obviously, if you want to get more time, you can actually do it after the event. But remember, because you have a limited amount of time and you might have 3,000 to 4,000 visitors, it's very, very important that you get them processed as quick as possible, get your message across, and also build that connection with them as well. And then lastly, once they've actually qualified, you need to look at collecting the data, okay? So having a scanner, I would ask you whether that's worthwhile, or actually having a personalized information form that where you have the pertinent questions that you want to ask them, and then you have the information. And if you have sales teams back in the office, you've also got to think about how you're actually going to get them briefed on the conversations that your teams actually had on the booth as well. So having a clear, defined information form is going to be very, very important for you down the line as well. So think about 3 or 4 really important questions which will actually allow you to collect the information that you actually need to continue that conversation after the event. So it could be, how often do you buy our products or services? When is your contract up for renewal? How much are you actually currently spending on this kind of solution? All right? Because this, again, will help you to build up your customer database and really understand your target audience and give you some stats and figures that you could actually use back in the office. So that journey, so saying hello, educating, and then collecting the information. And then the last step is the follow-up process, setting up the follow-up process, and I'll talk about that when we get to the follow-up section. Any questions on the attendee journey?
Just a quick one. It's like what you want them to feel, think, feel, and do at your booth.
Yeah.
That kind of perception of that education piece.
Yeah.
And then going with very kind of black and white, figure-orientated, qualifying kind of questions.
Yeah.
Seems a little bit at odds.
It isn't, because if you get the qualifying happens in this process, the qualifying happens when you build the rapport. Okay? You've built the rapport, so you found a common ground with them, and then you qualify them.
Yeah.
Okay? And then when you do the presentation, it's actually based on their pain points and aspirations. It's just more personalized. Okay? So what they've got is a personalized meeting, if you like, rather than just a one-size-fits-all presentation, right? So they shouldn't, if you follow the process, They shouldn't contradict each other at all.
Yeah. I think what we'd probably aim to do is find that information
Yeah.
throughout the process rather than relying on a qualifying question.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation, there will be clues that you pick up throughout the conversation, okay? But I think you need to have 3 or 4 nuggets right at the beginning to help you start on that journey, with getting to know them.
Is that more crucial if you're going to be handing over?
Yeah.
So if you're less worried about the kind of continuity of that sales process and you
Yeah.
have like an on-site team and an event team at home, which wouldn't be, again, the way that I'd do it, but you'd need that information. If you didn't need to have that kind of handover,
Yeah.
you probably you don't need to do it.
Yeah,
You could
exactly,
have
yeah.
a conversation in person.
Yeah.
You could have gone on LinkedIn and said, great to talk to you about your events, really excited to hear about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a question of...
I'm just wondering if there's something that's been missed there, because I'm agreeing with you, there's a disconnect. And I'm slightly concerned here that we collect the information on the stand, and then we give it to the sales team, who the first part of the call is, I understand your contract is up for renewal. No, it's not, bugger off.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
stop dead.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if the biggest thing, and leading from everything you've said,
Yeah.
is to ask them what they want to happen next. And give them
Absolutely,
proper
yeah.
choices.
Yeah, I've missed that part purposely because there's a whole section about the follow-up, which I'm going to address, and that will become clear. All right? But the conversation, just to finish off, the conversation should be a natural lead-up to the follow-up process. Okay? It's a case of getting the prospect to want to follow up with you. Okay? So it's how do you actually achieve that? And by having this process, by finding the common ground at the very beginning, actually allows you to do that. Okay? So in the planning stages, if you obviously look at your products and services that you're trying to offer, and remember when I said what are their pain points and aspirations. So if you look at your products and services and decide what pain points do these products actually solve, okay, then when you're actually presenting, when you're doing the closing and everything else, that will actually help you, really build that connection with them because you're really talking about their own personal pain points. Yeah? All right, so what we're going to do, we've had a heavy 1 hour or so. So let's take a quick cuppa and we'll start again because we're running a bit behind schedule. We'll start again in 10 minutes, so 14:33, please. All right, enjoy your tea. So I'm going to start off. Before the break, we were talking about the target audience and the customer journey. So I had an issue with the laptop, and I wanted to show you a matrix that we use to really get a handle on who your target audience is and what their pain points and aspirations are. So this is a matrix that we use with a lot of our clients, and it's really get to understand how they're thinking and what they're doing. So on the left-hand side, you've got job title, sector, what their challenges are, what their aspirations are, what their communication style could be, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and then any related questions to that challenge. So when you're doing your planning, it's always a great idea to draw something out like this, really try to understand, get into the head of what they're actually thinking, and then plan ahead by asking pertinent questions and making a list of those questions to address those challenges and aspirations. So and weave these into the conversation that you actually have with them. All right, so, and then at the end, you've also got a call to action. So what you could have is a personalized follow-up process, a separate call to action for different types of audiences as well. So just get back to the presentation. There we go. Okay, so, right, there we go. So, let me just explain that 85% of your exhibition success, like I said before, is down to your audience, it's down to your booth staff. But it's also down to your target audience as well, because they have to engage with you. But your brand ambassadors on the booth, it's a live environment, it's your booth staff. And we saw earlier on the pictures of people engaging in negative behavior at the stand. And that has a massive impact, and it shows, what kind of brand you are, because exhibitions are only the only marketing medium where you actually get to meet people face to face. So to have that negative impression, first of all, can be quite damning. So if 85% of your exhibition success is down to your booth staff, so the question is, how do you pick the right people, and how do you motivate and reward them to succeed at the exhibition? So how will you actually select and upskill the right booth staff? Okay, and again, with a lot of clients that we actually work with, we ask the question, how are you actually picking your teams? And the usual responses that we get are, we just pick anyone who's available, okay, ready to go down to the exhibition. And then it's always the sales team. We pick the sales team and we have them man the booth because they're the most suitable people. But when we ask the question, what jobs do you actually want them to do at the booth? What kind of jobs do you actually have? Okay, so if you think about a football team, or a rugby team or a cricket team, everyone has a specialized position, right? From the goalkeeper to the striker, everybody has a strength, and together as a team, they make it work. And exhibitions are no different, all right? We talked about the different kind of aspects of the attendee journey, and you need people who have the right skill sets and the right communication style to be able to do each one of those jobs. So let me just put out there, on an exhibition booth, think about it as your company, what kind of jobs actually need doing, okay? So when you've exhibited in the past, what are specific jobs that people are doing on the floor for your company? So here, so what kind of jobs would you have your team doing on the booth?
Stopping people and getting them to speak to them.
Okay, engaging and stopping people, excellent. Anything else?
Keeping it tidy and refreshments and stuff like that.
Hospitality, yeah, okay. Over there, what kind of jobs that need doing on the booth? Sorry, say that again?
Pictures.
Pictures. Oh, taking the pictures.
No, presentation.
Oh, presentation. Pictures. Oh, pictures. Okay. So presentations and pictures. Got it. Anything else? Giving away promotional materials? Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Anything?
Who keeps everyone organised all day? The ringleader.
All right. Okay. The leader.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. We call them the booth captain. Yeah. Excellent. Anything else? All right, I think you've captured most of them there. So we've got someone who stops people, someone who does the presentations and the demos, someone who does the hospitality, and then someone who kicks ass if people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? Is there anything else that you could do at the booth? Oh. Sorry, what was that?
Follow up on leads live.
Live follow-up. Yeah. So, how would you describe them? What would be the job role?
When you get a lead, they've got all the notes or actions, whatever, and they can send them something relevant.
All right, the admin person, I would say.
It's more of a
Yeah.
holding. Right, you talked about those qualifying questions.
Yeah.
It's basically someone who will capture that information or something similar.
Yeah. So data collector.
That's great. Excited
Yeah.
to find out more about this.
Chat next week.
We'll chat next week and let me know your availability. It's someone who
Yeah.
gets straight out.
All right. Okay. All right.
We put on rotation rather than separate person.
All right. So let's deal with the first one then. So the person who needs to stop people in conversation. What kind of personality do they need to have? What attributes do they need to have? Sorry? Bubbly, resilient,
Energetic.
energetic. Yeah, great buzzwords. Sorry, what was that?
Friendly,
Smiling,
smiling,
yeah.
well presented.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have those people in your teams currently?
Yes.
Yeah? No? No? What about,
Senior people to do that bit.
yeah,
As they're the ones most kind of removed from the reality of the job and product.
right,
It's the fluffier, nice bit.
yeah, right, okay. So the people who do the pitches and the presentations, do they need to be any different than the,
A good, you know, if you're using a sales team, which I suppose if you've got a sales team and you recruit them right,
yeah,
they will be the right people to be on your booth. If you train your sales team, everything that you referenced earlier in terms of building rapport is
Yeah.
what you expect from that person to
Yeah.
do the pitches.
yeah,
So they should be exactly the same as the person who does that in your group.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean they have to do it if you've got someone else doing it there.
yeah, yeah. So would the sales people be better off engaging the attendees or be better off doing the presentations?
I mean, it also depends on the size of your booth, though, right? Like you might have
Yeah.
like ETL typical stand size, but you might only have a couple of people on your booth.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do it all.
Yeah. So if you typically have 4 or 5 people in your team, you could actually delegate the tasks to people, but obviously if you only have like a small pod and there's only 2 of you, then obviously you have to go through that whole process by yourself. So you have to wear multiple hats to deliver that journey. But the key thing is, you need to, when you select your team, you need to assign them the right job role for their personality. I've seen salespeople absolutely bomb because they were told to stand in front of the booth and they went out to engage people. After 3 or 4 no's, because they didn't have the right personality and they were used to field selling appointments, okay, they just gave up. He said, I can't be asked doing this because it's too challenging. I can't handle the rejection. All right? So it's really important that whoever does that role, that you actually, recruit them as you would do for a normal day job by assessing, their suitability for that job. Okay, if they don't have the personality or the skill set, obviously you can train them with the skill set, but the bottom line is that they need to have the right resilience and the personality to be able to handle the rejection and be able to engage those people in conversation, because not everyone can actually do it. And again, it all boils down to looking at their personality. So clearly define, when you're doing your booth plan, okay, and you're selecting your people, really have a job role in mind for everyone, okay? So have a default, okay? So if everyone is doing a bit of everything, then make sure that they've got the right personality to be able to do all of those tasks as well, all right? So just like you wouldn't, in your business, you wouldn't hire an accountant to do your lawyer's job, and you wouldn't hire your lawyer to do your accountant's job. The trade show booth is exactly the same, okay? So if you're putting someone at the front of the booth whose idea of engagement is to stand there and do this and, you know, be spaced out, they're not going to be the right people for you. And it's the same with the presentations as well. If you haven't got anyone with a lot of energy or the product knowledge, then again, they're not going to be the right people. Again, according to research done by CEIR, over 80% of attendees actually want to speak to someone who can answer technical questions, okay? If you haven't got that expert on the booth and people aren't having their questions answered, then they're not going to be engaged with you as a company. So define your key job roles, and then set personal objectives for every single member of the team, okay? Just like you do in their day-to-day jobs, by actually having objectives, keeps them motivated, keeps their energy levels up, and it creates a sense of competition, and also it creates, most importantly, a sense of teamwork as well. Because if you work together as a team to hit your objectives, okay, and you actually celebrate as a team, then it's something that you can actually look forward to. Exhibitions are really, really hard. They take a lot of your energy as a team, because you'll be away from home, you're giving up your 9-to-5 job for 2 or 3 days, and then you've got to go and face the music back in the office and all these emails that you need to do and so on. So it's very important that you play as a team and then you celebrate achieving those objectives as well. And those objectives can be, you know, very, very simple. It can be the number of people that you actually talk to. It can be the number of meetings that you can actually set up. The number of lead forms that you as a member can actually fill in. So really look at everyone and involving everyone in that team process or the engagement process. And lastly but not least is how will you maintain high energy levels during the exhibit hours? As I mentioned before, your energy as a team is what is going to engage people as well, okay? No one actually wants to visit a really downbeat, miserable looking people on a booth. They just don't want to actually approach you, okay? If you're eating lunch, if you're chit-chatting with each other, all these are actually giving off negative vibes, and attendees are naturally put off, and they will actually just keep walking. So again, it's very important to actually have a very high energy level, okay? And how can you actually do that? Is by looking at, you know, putting in some incentives, some breaks as well. So go off the booth every 10 minutes on the hour just to recharge your batteries, because if you're constantly talking to people, okay, you will get, you know, brain fuzz. I mean, if I constantly talk for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, that's it. I'm completely gone, and my energy is gone, and I just need to go outside, take a breather, and then come back. Okay, because it is energy sapping, so you really need to manage your rotas of your booth and just to keep those energy levels up. And the other things that you can do, if you have a large enough team, is to put them on a rota. Okay, get 2 people to come in one day and then change the team the next day. Okay, so let's really look at different ways of charging your, keeping your team positively charged. Or you could always have, a battery charger and plug them in if the technology is going the way it's going, you might have some AI people manning your booth very soon. All right, everything clear on booth staffing? Any questions? Okay, let's move on to understanding what is your team's communication style. So we have a tool it's called IMA, Identify, Modify, and Adapt. It was invented by a chap who used to work for the Dale Carnegie School. And what it does, it asks you, it's a simple test, and asks you 10 questions, and it tells you how you actually communicate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a QR code. So if you have your mobile phone with you, you can quickly scan it. It will take you 2 minutes, and it will actually tell you what your own personal communication style is. And that will tell me what kind of job role that you'll be suitable for on the exhibition stand. This is a tool that we use for our professional freelancers when we allocate them jobs at our client stands. So we want to know whether they'll be good as an engager, whether they're good as an event manager, or whether they're good as a team leader. And I will talk you through, so if you do that, and I'll give you a couple of minutes, and then I'll talk through what it all actually means. Don't think too much about the questions, just go naturally with what your first instinct is. That's not working. Oh, right, it's HTTP, sorry. So if you go to HTTP, / not HTTPS, there you go. Yeah. So if you get a message saying it's not secure, you should try HTTP and not HTTPS. Everyone done? Yeah. Wonderful. So here's the chart. Hope everyone can see it. I know it's a bit breaking all the rules of PowerPoint presenting, but there you go. What does it all mean? So the IMA is based on 6 different elements. First element is whether you're assertive or non-assertive. Whether you can kick ass or whether you're better at taking directions. Second element is whether you're task-orientated or you're relationship-orientated, and whether you're self-contained and whether you are open. So self-contained means reserved, open means very much open to engaging with people. So if we take these elements and you can actually combine them, then you get the 4 different colors. So I'm a high red, okay? So as a person, I am goal-orientated, go-getter, I feel comfortable when I'm in charge of people. I work at a very fast pace, and but I also like to work alone. Okay, managing teams is not my forte when it comes to productivity, and I'm very much bottom line focused in terms of getting the job done. How do you actually sell to me? Okay, how do you actually engage with me? And that is to be very practical, be brief. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. I get, as a managing director, I get approached by people on LinkedIn, I get sales pitches all of the time. And if any sales pitch doesn't make me understand what it can actually do for me and what the cost is within 3 minutes, I automatically switch off. And if you want to do long and boring presentations to me with all the features and benefits of the product, chances are that I've actually switched off after 3 minutes and I'm no longer actually interested. So with high reds, it's very, very important that you actually get to the bottom line very, very quickly. So just tell them what the benefits are, what it can actually do for them, when you can actually deliver it, and how much it's going to cost. And then the great thing about high reds is they're really good decision makers. They can make decisions instantly. All right? They don't need time to think about it. Whereas the opposite, the high green, so they're very much task orientated. They're very analytical. Okay, so they will actually need time to actually decide on your proposals. So, and the worst thing that you can do with high greens is push them for time. You just need to leave them alone to actually analyze all of the data and give them time to actually make that decision. If you push them, then they're very quickly going to go off you and off the proposal. They're going to push back. So be time disciplined, be logical and prepared when you come in. They will have a lot of technical questions for you as well. Be respectful of their rules, be structured and organized, and be very precise, okay? And this is, high greens are typical technology people, okay? So if you're working with IT programmers, for example, they can be high greens. As well as, obviously, people having these colors, jobs have these colors as well, all right? So CEOs, manager level people, they're normally high reds. Technology programmers or people who have to pay attention, like dentists and accountants, there can be greens as well. If you're relationship orientation and you're open but you're non-assertive, you're very much feeling orientated, so that's a blue, okay? So these are your customer service people. Now I'll give you an example. McDonald's up in Manchester in Bury, you will know where Bury is. There was a franchise that did a test with this, and they took they had their team actually take the test, and they actually placed the blues and the high yellows in the restaurant area where people eat, okay? And you know, in McDonald's you have these smiley buttons where you do your satisfaction ratings. In that restaurant, after they did this experiment, the green went up by about 67% because the people in the restaurant area were relationship oriented. They could actually smile, they could actually welcome people, and they seemed a lot happier. And they didn't actually have issues engaging with people at the front end. So blues, very much, you have to be supportive of their feelings, be pleasant, be non-assertive as well. And, you know, they make good planners, okay? So if you have a hospitality team on the booth, high blues would be the best people for that. And lastly, to the high yellows, these are the people that you need at the front of your booth, engaging and stopping people, because they can handle rejection. They want to be the star of the show, okay? They have the personality, and they're immune to rejection. Okay, because if you've ever been to a networking event and someone walks in and they light up the room and they actually go and approach every single person, chances are they're actually high yellow. Now, using this tool, okay, you can also map this to your target audience as well. The matrix I gave you just a short time ago, at the end it said communication style. By looking at their job title, and by looking at what they do in their job role, you can actually determine their communication style as well. You can determine their colour. So what you can do then is have a plan with your sales team to actually treat them this way when you're actually having those conversations. If you're aware, so if you have a high yellow, the way to tell a high yellow in the audience is that if they're wearing over-the-top clothing, if you have someone wearing a high-vis jacket or bright red trousers or something like that, chances are that they're actually a high yellow. The other thing I've got to mention is that every single one of us has all 4 colours, but we actually have a dominant style. So this is why we call it high green, high red, high blue. So in every single one of us, we actually have those attributes, but when in our comfort zone and in our stress levels, okay, we have a dominant zone that we get into. So how many high reds did we have in the room from the test? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you all make really good booth managers, okay? So it's funny that you mentioned that at the beginning about kicking ass. And how many high yellows do we have? Oh, wow. Okay, that's fantastic. So all of you would be great at the front of the booth actually approaching people. You wouldn't have any issues with your energy levels or getting rejected. How many high blues? 1, yeah, great at customer service. And high greens, 1 person. Okay, so you'll be a great planner, getting all those boxes ticked and getting health and safety and everything else would be would be great. But in your teams, high-functioning teams, there should be at least one of these colours in your team, because that's when you get real collaboration, because you get different perspectives from every single person. So if you have a good mixture, and if you go back to your offices and you actually measure people's communication style, and if you have really high-performing teams, then you actually look and you might have every single colour in your team. This is one of the reasons why. Okay. This is also a great way to understand where the conflict happens. This tool is being used by a number of lawyers to mediate in divorces, to really get an understanding of what the communication style is of the wife and the husband and where the conflict is, okay, and actually try to mediate using this framework. Okay, and then this is another great tool. So when you come to build your team, is to have a look at this matrix and really where the gap is, see where the gap is, because all of these attributes you need in your booth management team. Okay, so they need to be proactive, customer service driven, enthusiastic, motivated, energetic, really need to understand people's communication styles, and then look at the product knowledge and the self-confidence as well. So if you do this matrix and mark them from 0 to 10, and obviously if you get a lot of, when you're selecting your team, if the scores are less than 5, it probably means that you need to get them upskilled on each area so that they can actually perform quite highly. Right, moving on to KPIs. I think Matt will love this. I know you talk about ROI and ROO quite a lot. Remember at the beginning, we talked about your 3 core objectives. So really to link into that, okay, is to look at what are your success KPIs. What are the numbers that you need to know that you will actually measure your success or failure by? All right, so and I'm going to go through these shortly. And then that also ties into what information do you need from the attendees to really understand your numbers as well. So, and again, I'll give you a matrix very shortly. How you collect the attendee data? Okay, we're in the event technology business. There's lots of great tools to be able to scan your badge, put questions out there that people can answer. In terms of event technology, there's also software available that tracks your eye movements. So if you have like kiosks at your booth, you can actually have technology that you can actually measure the dwell time on each kiosk or each area of the booth, so that you can actually tell where the most engagement was on your booth. And then next thing you need to know is how will you segment the leads? Okay, there's always two types of leads that you collect. One is marketing qualified, and the other one is sales qualified. Matt, sorry to put you on the spot, but what would you say is the difference between a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead?
Sales, you hand straight to the sales team to go close them. And marketing is you do a little bit more marketing before you hand it over to the sales team.
Yep, got that in a nutshell. So qualified sales lead or sales qualified lead is where you have an immediate opportunity to do business with them. Okay, that may be within 3 months, within 6 months, whatever your sales cycle is. A marketing qualified lead is that they actually fit your ideal target audience, but they're not ready to do business with you because they might have a long-term contract, or they might not have a budget right now. But if you do some more marketing to them over the course of the next 6 to 12 months or 24 months, they could potentially turn out to be a customer. All right, so the usual ratio, and I want you to write these three numbers down, 3, 67, 30. So 3% of any given audience in an exhibition hall could be your potential sales qualified lead. 67% could be your marketing qualified leads. So these are the people that you need to do, that could do business with you, but you need to do work on them. And there will be 30% of people in the exhibition hall where you actually have no chance of doing business with them whatsoever. So these figures, again, when you're planning your activity, it's very important to understand that. So if you come away, so if Adam is going to give you, let's say, 5,000 attendees at Event Tech Live, 3% of those are potentially ready to do business with you. But the other 67%, you'll need to do some more work on and actually have a strategy, a marketing strategy to keep them engaged as well. So what you need to do is look at the factors which will actually help you determine what makes a qualified lead, a sales qualified lead, and what makes a marketing qualified lead. And I guess your sales and marketing teams need to have that conversation. How will you integrate this data into your CRM? That is another very important question. So your leads can actually come, so some of your booth staff might collect leads on a business card. It might be a manual information sheet that you fill out. It might be a badge scan, and or it could be a lead retrieval system from the organizer. So that's potential 5 or 6 different sources of data that you actually have. So what does the process actually look like beyond the show to actually integrate that with your CRM? Okay, are you going to put everything into one spreadsheet and then upload it to your CRM? And it's, again, very important that one single person takes accountability of this, because it's very easy to actually lose sight of 5 different sources of lead management. So when, you're doing the customer journey, is to look at, right, what tools are we actually going to use, and just settle on 1 or 2, okay? For me, when I advise customers, we always have a manual backup of an information sheet if technology fails, okay? And then actually having an app that ties in with your CRM automatically, okay? So when you're, obviously you're all event technology people, you probably have a better idea of how to achieve this than I do. But it's very, very important that, again, you actually settle on 1 or 2 methods without having a complication later down the line. Just going back to the CRM, again, it's very important that you actually attribute that lead to ETL and ESL. So what tends to happen later down the line, if you're handing sales leads over to salespeople, sometimes what they do is they take that credit, so they put it down as a referral or from another source. But what you need to know, obviously, is whether that investment is paying off. So every lead that you collect from the show should have a field to say where was the lead source from. Obviously, if you have existing clients, that's a different issue altogether. But if you have brand new people that you're talking to, always make sure that you actually attribute that to ETL or ESL, so that later down the line, 6 months, 3 months, or 3 years, you can see that ETL did its job because that lead converted into a sale. How will you allocate the sales leads? Again, that's an important question. You need to decide whether the people on the booth take ownership of that, or whether you're going to hand them over to the sales team. And then if you do hand them over to the sales team, what does the handover process look like? Okay, is it one-to-one? Is it like a video note on the app? Or is it a voice note? Okay, so there is technology available now where you can actually, once you've collected the data, you can actually leave a voice note, and that goes into your CRM, and whoever is picking up the lead, they can actually get an overview of what the conversation was actually about. All right? Any questions on your KPIs and data collection? No? Okay, let's move on to the most important bit. Right. Over the past 16 years, well, throughout my sales life, there are 6 figures that I use religiously to understand my business metrics, okay? And these are, number 1, the revenue that you need, okay, from that show, whether it's, you know, the number of sales, okay? So we start the conversation off, every customer that we talk to is we want to say, right, how much sales, what does the sales figure actually look like from the trade show? What would you actually be happy with, okay? So the first thing to understand is obviously what it's cost you. So there are 2 figures to look at. One is the break-even point, and one is your ideal figure. So your break-even point is dictated by your spend on the exhibition stand. So let's look at if you need 1 sale, okay? 1 sale, if you know your average customer value, everybody here should know in their business what an average customer is worth to them over a year or the lifetime of when they actually do the business with you. So if you are doing, let's say, £100,000 worth of business a year with 10 clients, that's £10,000 average order value for the year, or average customer spend, okay? So if you want to make 100,000, okay, from the trade show, then you clearly need 10 sales at a value, an average customer value of 10,000, okay? So that makes sense. So then you've worked out the number of customers, okay? So this is where it gets very, very important, where you actually need to know your conversion rates, okay? So how many presentations do you actually need to make as a business to convert them into a customer? And then from the presentations, how many qualified leads do you need to have to convert them into presentations? And then lastly, how many hellos do you need to say to turn them into qualified leads? And you notice here that we actually work backwards, okay? So you need to look at, okay, so if you're spending 50,000 or 100,000 on ETL or ESL, so you need to look at what figure is your business going to be happy with in terms of prospective pipeline business to come from the show. Are you going to aim for just to break even, okay? Or are you actually going to really boost your business growth plan by getting lots and lots of clients from the show? So it's really a question of you writing down what figure you'd be happy with and then working backwards. And at the bottom, what you will actually have is the number of hellos. So if you work out that you need 10 customers, And to get presentations, I'm using this as an example. So to get 10 customers, you close 1 in 4. So you'll need to do 40 presentations. To do 40 presentations, you might convert 1 in 2. So you might need 80 qualified leads. To get 80 qualified leads, you might be converting, if it's a really good exhibition, you might convert 1 in 2. So you'll need to say hello to 160 people. How are you going to do that? Over 2 days. What kind of activity are you going to actually have on the booth to give you those 160 hellos to people? And that will also dictate the number of people that you have on the booth. And then that will also dictate the booth space that you actually have. Okay? Because if you have a small pod and you have 2 people and you need to say hello to 160 people, you know, you need to have a very quick process in getting everyone handled in terms of saying hello, doing a demo, capturing the data, setting up the follow-up, and all within probably 3 or 4 minutes, I would say, if you wanted to say 160 with 2 of you. So really look at these figures at the beginning and then say, right, how we're actually going to do this, because that activity, the marketing and prospecting activity, is what's going to drive your revenue at the, on the other end. Any questions on this? No? All right. Yeah.
Can you turn that on its head by saying, I bought this bigger stand, this is how many people I've got, this is what I expect to get at the end of it, and then I can judge whether it's successful or not?
Yeah, you can set a benchmark.
Yep.
Okay, so if you have the amount of space and you have the number of people, we always look at the number of people as the ideal benchmark, because it doesn't really matter on, obviously if you have a big booth, the impact is going to be huge, you're going to be more noticeable, okay? But it's the real one-to-one conversations where the impact is. So if you have 10 people on the booth and they're each talking, each saying, typically I would target 10 hellos per hour, okay, per individual person if they're your internal booth staff. When we have professional engagers, as we call them, we target them minimum of 30 hellos per hour. Okay, so it's really a question of if you say that you have 5 people, and then you can work out if you give them a target of 10 per hour engagements, then you can set an expectation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, question that you need to ask, is it realistic? Okay, so, and again, it all boils down to doing your homework on the trade show. If the organizer is telling you that you're going to have 5,000 prospects, but the activity plan is telling you that you need to say hello to 10,000 people, then there's something wrong there, right? But if you have a show of 5,000 and 1,000 of them are your prospective clients, okay, then you can also put the activity with the number of people and so on to get access to those 1,000 people. So really manipulating these numbers can do wonders for your results. So what we always say is work out your laps, leads, appointments, presentations, and sales. And that requires a really in-depth understanding of your sales closing ratio. So if you have a sales team, talk to your sales manager and actually get an idea of conversion ratios. There are businesses, unfortunately, out there that they don't even know what their conversion rates are. So it's very hard to predict whether they're going to be successful or not. But a good benchmark is presentations to customers. We use, as a default, we use 1 in 4, 25%, worst case 1 in 5. From qualified leads to presentations, it's normally 1 to 2, because if they are qualified, there's no reason why they shouldn't actually have a presentation. And again, that's a worst case scenario, 1 in 2. Ideally, it should be like 1 3/4. And then lastly, marketing prospecting activity. We normally use 1 in 3 as a benchmark. So for every 3 hellos that you say, 1 of them should convert into a presentation. All right, so these are figures based on 16 years worth of generating leads for clients. Know your conversion ratios, and obviously, like I said before, these will dictate the activity that you need to do to get access to those leads. As your KPIs, your follow-up process. Here's a scary statistic. 70% of leads that are actually collected from a trade show are never followed up beyond the thank you email. That's quite scary, isn't it? And it's especially prevalent at a lot of the technology shows that we work at. We get asked by a lot of San Francisco companies to scan as many badges as possible, but there's no personalized follow-up at all. And that is quite scary. I mean, especially if you've got sales qualified leads and you're sending a thank you email and hoping that they actually just get in touch with you, all right? And that is, again, quite scary. So the gold is always in the follow-up, okay? It's not at the trade show, and the journey starts when you actually have that conversation and you ask the prospect as to how they actually want to follow it up, which is what you said before, okay? So bridging that gap between the goodbye and the conversation afterwards is where a lot of businesses actually make a huge mistake, because they rely on a lot of factors. So you take the business card, you send the email, and then they give the leads to their salespeople. And if you have a pile of cards this thick, or you have a CRM system, and you're not segmenting your leads, and you're actually going through one by one, so if you've collected 1,000 leads, for example, the opportunity, if you haven't segmented your leads, that you actually have might be the 600th lead that you actually have, okay? So you might have all the marketing qualified ones first. So it's very important that you actually prioritize the hot opportunities from just the conversation, mainstream conversations that you actually have. So, and the best way to do that is to define the follow-up journey for each type of prospect that you actually have. And it's got to be personalized, all right? So if you get a sales qualified lead, the best question to ask them is, so how is it best to actually follow this up? The best way to do that is to get a date in the calendar already, okay? Everyone has a mobile device these days with a calendar, all right? So we actually had a client who went to the pharmacy show in Birmingham. They're a drug development company, and they changed the whole concept as to how they actually engage people, and their single goal was to get 80 meetings in the calendar with qualified prospects, and that's what the salespeople were targeted to do, and they actually hit the target, all right? So they went through that journey, and then at the end is, we'd love to have a follow-up conversation with you. Would it be a good idea to set a meeting in the calendar right now? Okay? And why wait 1 week when you get back into the office, send them an email or call them, when you can actually, if they're hot and they've answered all the qualifying questions and there's a potential to do business with them, why not just make the meeting there and then? And then when you get back to the office, you just double confirm it. And that way, your engagement, post-show will actually go up tremendously. And you will actually close more sales. And if you've got someone really engaged, okay, they'll be champing at the bits, okay? They might even call you after you leave the show and say, can you send some more information as well? So it's really a question of, if you've pressed all the hot buttons, then that person will actually have no issue in setting that meeting up with you. What are the key stages of your follow-up process? And again, just like your attendee journey on the booth, this needs to be mapped out, okay? So have a look at your sales process and look at, what are the vital stages where you get in touch with that person. You know, is it going to be an email straight away? Then what happens after you've had the conversation? Is there a presentation? Is there another, like an invite to a webinar, follow-up webinar after the event? So what are all the touch points that you actually have? And again, according to research, typically from an exhibition there are around 15 touch points after you've spoken to someone at a trade show before you actually do the deal. Okay, so what you need to look at in your planning stage is what are those touch points going to be, right? So the more touch points that you actually have, the more engagement you have, and the more your prospects are going to be more, aware of you. And then again, just like you assign the planning process for your exhibition, you assign someone or a department to have accountability for the follow-up process. Someone who actually looks at the statistics regularly, goes through them, actually checks the progress of each lead, and gets the reports in from each salesperson to say, how's it going, okay? And they can do this, again, depending on your sales cycles. If you have a long sales cycle from 1 to 3 years, again, it's important that you actually check your performance levels maybe every 6 months and to see how it's actually going, because that will give you a better idea rather than just taking a snapshot straight after the show and saying, oh, it was a failure, okay? Because I still get business from trade shows that I've exhibited at from 6, 7, 8 years ago. I know that's quite rare, but sometimes, you know, you've just got to be in the right place at the right time. But sometimes it's a very long process, okay? And you've got to just wait for the right opportunity for that person to have that opportunity to work with you. And how does your sales cycle align with your follow-up process? So again, like I said before, just look at your sales cycle and map it to your follow-up process as well. So whichever stage, so sales cycles, obviously, if you're doing cold calling, if you have that as a strategy within your business, if you do the trade shows do away with the cold calling because it's just a hot lead. So you can start the process at just the presentation level, for example, okay? And then just tie it in with your sales cycle from there. All right, so, and how will you track your progress, okay? So what increments of time are you going to use to measure your success, okay? Is it going to be straight away, where you're going to assess whether it was successful or not? Or are you going to look at it every 3 months, every 6 months, every 12 months? So it's really, again, a question of what your sales cycle looks like and how often you do business with your customers. Any questions on the follow-up process? All right. So I just want to share some case studies with you. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. One which has had a minimal spend, and another one which had like a real big budget. So this is one of our clients, Centurion Service Group. They're a medical devices reseller. They auction second-hand medical equipment. They're based in the east coast of the US, and they normally go to Arab Health, and it's one of the only shows that they actually do. And they just exhibit as part of an international pavilion. And normally they just have a small space, a pod, or like a small 3x3 booth. And they normally have, I think, 3 to 4 people on the booth. So the cost of the booth is minimal. Because the show is in the Middle East, they hire 2 language specialists, so someone who speaks English and Arabic to engage with the attendees. And they had 2 simple objectives. Sign up people to their app, a Centurion Service app, which is like an auction app. So where all the hospitals, clinics who have equipment to sell, they can actually upload their equipment and actually put it on auction. and then just simple batch scans. So they've clearly identified their sales qualified leads and then also their marketing leads. So the results that they got, average of 900 batch scans and 300 sign-ups to the app over the course of 4 days at Arab Health. Sales pipeline value of $2.5 million worth of potential new business, and the total cost of that exhibition was $25,000. So the ROI there was at least 20 times the cost of what they actually spent. Now they do that annually every year. So their motto is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay, so it's, again, minimal spend, but lots of exposure, and they have a very clear direction. So here's a big one, Terumo. Again, it's another drug development company. Their sales cycles are 3 years long. They work with all the major drug developers around the globe, like Pfizer and so on. They manufacture the syringes that helps you deliver drugs to your patients. So their budget obviously is considerably larger. They came to one of our workshops that we actually held at a conference, and what happened was they normally bring all of their salespeople from around Europe, and they just congregated outside the booth, talked to people, took the business card, put it in their pocket, and went away. The marketing manager had no insight as to what the ROI was or what was actually generated during the event, unless you actually rang each one of them individually. So by what we did was we completely changed the process because they only wanted to talk to very specific people. We put a rope and pillar around their stand. Okay, so they had to be qualified before they could actually go into the stand and actually talk to the specialists. And then when they were actually in the stand, this is the second stand that we actually worked with them. We had 5 pieces of art generated by special artists, commissioned to special artists using needles. Okay, so they actually had a frame there. There was like a model made completely out of needles. And what they did was they actually used that as a museum tour to actually educate and engage people. And the whole idea was to educate those drug developers on how they actually manufactured the needle using the technology or the principles of a mosquito bite. Okay, so and then at the end they actually had a data collection person. So once they'd actually had the tour, they asked the question, questions like, do you have an active drug development? When is it due for completion? What kind of delivery vessels are you going to look at? So all this questionnaire was actually filled in with a specialist on the computer, and then they could actually go back and actually see the pipeline. So they had the data capture. They had clear 3 follow-up options, whether it was a webinar, whether it's a one-to-one, a discovery call after the event, or whether it was just a simple add them to a newsletter about their drug development, about their technology. So the expenditure, their budget was around $100,000. They got 65 sales qualified leads. So that's all they were interested in at the end of the day. And then the potential sales pipeline was $5 million. And that pipeline was actually measured over the course of 3 to 5 years, not just immediately. Okay, so they were taking a long-term objective for that trade show. So this was at Pharma Pack, which was in, if I'm right, Barcelona. So there you go. It just goes to show that if you use the processes that we're giving you, it doesn't matter whether you actually have a small booth or whether you have a big booth. What you're going to have are sustainable results over over every exhibition that you actually do by actually having a clear process, a clear attendee journey, and a clear measurement process as well. So that leads me to on the Exhibitor Success Program. So with the help of Adam's team, what we do with exhibitors, is we have a free 1-hour exhibit strategy audit. Okay, so where you have a 1-hour session, we ask you a lot of questions related to the framework that we actually have, and then we show you the areas for improvement and what actions you can actually take. So that's available to all of you as exhibitors at ETL. You will also have access to our specialist engagers and presenters for on-site support. So if you don't have the right people in your team, we can actually man the booth for you. We also provide booth staff communication and engagement training. So we had a company last week, they're an educational technology company. They normally work at HET and BET, which is the educational show. And they had all of their team, about 25 people, come in and learn all about the communication processes and things like that. So they wanted to make sure that everybody was able to engage at any given time during that booth journey. And then obviously, as part of the audit, we'll also give you a follow-up strategy call after 3 months to evaluate how you did and any areas for improvement as well. All right, so that's available to all of you. So what I want to do is I want to finish off by asking each table some of your key takeaways from the content today. So to see obviously what hit home and what areas you need to address as a business. So on this table, what would you say your key learning points are?
Sort out my objectives of what I actually want to achieve.
Yeah.
And everything else follows from there.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Anything else?
I think that, yeah, I was going to say the objective thing, but also it's about knowing how to be good with people as well.
Yeah.
Like I think you took a long time just like explaining how to interact with people to
Yeah.
build relationships.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, exhibitions are all about people buying from people, people engaging with people, okay? And again, as businesses, we make the mistake of making exhibitions think that it's all about how fancy your booth is or your giveaways are and so on, and take it away from what it really is people engaging with people. So investing in people, training them to be able to engage with your target audience, I think that's very, very important with anyone's exhibition strategy. What about this table?
I think qualifying leads is
Yeah.
so key because, you know, how do we spend our time? That's I
Yeah.
think the question that we should all ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And you know, does this person deserve more time?
More time, yeah.
Than others. So I think that's quite key. I like what you said about you know, ideal optimal presentation time is about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Definitely something to remind our CEO about. Yeah, I like that because I think, as you said, less is more, and it's
Yeah.
quality over quantity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spending 20 minutes with them doing the open rapport, trust kind of.
Yeah.
So the presentation's always got to be short, but
Yeah.
you should know everything to be able to
Yeah.
say this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was interested in like the kind of personas of internally,
Yeah.
in terms of identifying appropriate roles within your team and making sure that
Yeah.
you understand their strengths.
Yeah.
I think that's useful.
Yeah. Matt, anything from you?
It's not just your ideal customer profile, but the show's customer profile,
Yeah.
and understanding how to do that so that you
Yeah.
say the right thing to the right people when they come on your booth or whatever. Also, I suppose you talk about benchmarking success. When
Yeah.
you've done an event multiple times, the
Yeah.
easiest way to benchmark success
Yeah.
is from
Yeah.
previous years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's challenging a little bit because of the climate we've just come out of, but it's
Yeah.
kind of settling now, and I think that's always a good measure of
Yeah.
how successful you've been, and also to be
Yeah.
able to motivate new people that come in to do it
Yeah.
year after year.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great stuff. What about this table?
I found the colours really interesting. I can
Right. Yeah.
actually finding out if this works with them. So there is mutual partnership, really.
Fantastic. Anything else?
I think for me, the three things additional to what we do
Yeah.
is sort of having a team focus, but I do think it's better to have a team taking it through the process from end to end, as opposed to say, right, I'm going to palm you off onto this guy to do a presentation. I want them to own that presentation to build that rapport that we talked about.
Yeah.
Because I think the follow-up will be easier if you're
Yeah.
not palming people off. The messaging and keeping that succinct to 6 minutes and what's going to be in that is going to be relevant to us. And then obviously the laps and working the numbers, not necessarily for how you work the math, but how the math works for us for
Yeah.
future events, because it could be different for
Yeah,
each.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, wonderful. What about yourself?
There's a bunch, but I think for me, I really liked the notion that people don't go to an expo to buy something, but they go
Yeah.
to be educated.
Yeah.
So it's really about trying to see what their problem is and how you can solve it. And the other one was around leads and trying to figure out the best way to follow up with a lead when they're actually there
Right.
versus waiting afterwards and just
Yeah.
kind of going into dinner.
Yeah, absolutely. That opportunity that you have right there and then, okay, that moment is never going to come, okay? So you might as well just go for it. What's the worst thing that could actually happen if you ask people, let's get a date in the calendar? They'll just say, I'll reach out to my secretary or something like that. But if they are keen, and again, this is quite important, it shows you how engaged they are. Because if they're ready to agree to a meeting on the calendar, it means that they're 80% there, and what you've got to do now is just go and do your work in terms of convincing them, in terms of the smaller details. But if they say, that's fine, but then you'll actually realize that they've just been saying the right thing, but they're not quite engaged. Okay, so a lot of information can be gleaned from how they actually react to that question, right? And what about at this table?
That was my main one about,
Yeah.
like, basically going in for the kill
Yeah.
while they're there and they're excited.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I'm totally in for the kill. Don't do that with all of our customers, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that they're engaged. It's a prime opportunity because
Yeah.
they could go to the booth next door and
Yeah,
and,
absolutely,
you know,
yeah.
and that person
Yeah, yeah.
sweeps them off their feet as well.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, when they go back to the office, what tends to happen is normal life takes over, and whoever they've met, whatever they've learned, okay, kind of goes out of the window until they pick the bag up and actually run through it, maybe one weekend or something. I don't know, but so it's great that you've actually picked up all of these things, and I hope that you can actually put these into practice of ETL or ESL, and make a really good success of the show. I would love to get your feedback from the event, so I'd be grateful if you could just do that quick survey for me when you have a chance. You don't have to do it right now, but you could save that URL. We will be sending the slides out to Adam's team, and they'll share them with you, and that includes to everyone online as well. Everybody got the URL? Yeah. And if you would like to follow me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I talk a lot about exhibitions, the show. We have a lot of content, what we're doing, and there's like one of the great things is that what we're able to do is aggregate the content and ideas from different types of industries as well. So, and then put them into practice, into different types of sectors and so on. And that cross-section really does well. And us as a company, I mean, what we do is the framework is the same across all of the work that we actually do, but the learning points are all different, and I share some of those insights on my on LinkedIn, and there's also a podcast and lots of content on our website if you go to the free resources area. So that's me done. Thank you very much for your attention, being a very good audience, interactive, and I'll hand over to Adam.